Welcome to this tutorial mini-series where I'm going to show you how you can create a jetpack in Unity. We're going to go all the way from scratch, so starting with modeling in Blender, the texturing, taking it to Unity, doing the animation, the special effects, control everything by script, add the physics, and lastly I'm going to show you how you can fly around this thing in virtual reality, which is ton of fun. Alright, let's get started by modeling the jetpack or jet engine in Blender. I'm going to do a basic block out and then show you a few different ways how you could add details. You can follow along step by step, but I'm also going to try to give you ideas for different workflows and so maybe show you some alternative paths. I might go back and forth a little bit, just so you can design your own stuff. The style I'm using in this video is going to be low poly, stylized, so not too realistic. It's going to be a game asset, and so the less polygons you have, the better your performance is going to be. So we're gonna try to keep the poly count pretty low. In the corner you can see the screens that I'm pressing. If you see F5 or F6, that's just my undo and redo. I'm not using any paid add-ons for this one. I think I'm using Auto Mirror. That's a free add-on. I can show you how to install it, but also it's just, gonna save a few clicks. Okay, so this is pretty much it. So let's get started. I'm just gonna delete the cube and select the camera and the light. Hit M and move it to a new collection called Cam and Light. Alright, and then I just hide it. Shift A, mesh, add a cylinder, and as I said, I want to do a low poly style, so 16 should be enough. And gonna rotate it on the X by 90 degrees, so RX90. Gonna scale on the Y, so SY, and then drag it out with the mouse a bit. Something like that. And when I hit 1 on my numpad, I'm going into front view, and you can see none of the faces are perfectly vertical or horizontal, but that would be pretty useful when we're going to connect other objects, when we're going to add details and so on. So I'm going to go into item and change the Y rotation. So 360, that's your circle. We have 16 sides, so now it would exactly rotate by one side, so just divide one more time by 2, and that gives us 11.25, and now the faces are horizontal and perfectly vertical here. Okay, and so that doesn't influence our modifiers in a weird way. We're going to hit Control A and then apply rotation and scale. So the object stays the same, but all those values are going to be set to 0 and 1. Okay, now let's hit Tab to go into edit mode. I'm just going to do a few loop cuts so we can mold the shape like this. Again, I'm not going to go too detailed. This is a low poly game. So 2 to go into edge mode. And I want to use proportional editing, so I turn this on. I can also do it with O on my keyboard. And the idea is when we use smooth, it means that every vertex is also going to get changed, whatever we change the selection. So when I hit 2, edge mode, Alt click this edge loop, and now I scale, and all the other vertices based on how close they are also going to be scaled a little bit. So with the mouse wheel I can change the circle of influence. I think if you want to go stylized you could do something even like this extreme, but I'm gonna keep it just a little bit like this. I mean, it is stylized, but yeah. Okay, let's select the 3 top face, scale this one down a bit. And the cool thing with the proportional editing is if I just scroll down with the mouse wheel like a lot, now it's just like it wasn't on, because the distance to the next vertices are just too big. And so I can just see how it would look like this, and then just what if I turn it on? And so I want to keep it off. Scale this one down. I'm gonna do one more loop cut here. So like this. Let's see. Because now I can select the loop or the face S. And yeah. Think like that. Let's just try that out. I to insert the face. Maybe this thick. And with E we're going to extrude it just inwards. I would do it at least like this. We're gonna add the blades, but yeah, the player shouldn't see too easily that there really isn't an engine inside. It's just an empty hull. So I think if you leave a bit of a distance here, we can just like, there won't be too much light getting in there. So the player just sees the blades and like black in the background. And we might cheat a bit with the blades and position them so they're actually covering more than they would in a realistic jet engine. It's a game experience after all. So for the exhaust, I'm gonna have 3 face mode. Oh, well, I could extrude it. Just see. S, scale that one in. Maybe like this. And here once again, I'm gonna I to insert just a little bit. I want this one to be thinner and E to extrude inwards. There will be fire and smoke here, so it doesn't matter too much what it looks inside. And I think I want to extrude this one a little bit. And then those. We could add the mirror modifier. Let's see. I'm gonna do it just to show you, basically. So I'm checking the form now. Check if I'm more or less happy with it. I think I want this stretched out just a little bit. So I go 3 face mode, select this loop, and zooming out, say GY. And now I can increase the proportional editing. So, you know, let's see what the original was. So like this, GY. You know, just a tiny bit. Actually, I do it like this. I'll say GY again. And only move the front part like this. Okay, I'm gonna go with this shape. You can of course always change it, but basically the more things you add, the harder it gets to change the fundamental things, of course. Even though I'm gonna show you some workflows that can do that. That can make that a bit easier, but still it's the tendency is obvious. Like the more you add, the harder it gets to change. So I just want to try to get the form right for the most part. And now with the Auto Mirror tool, which you can just install like Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, look for Auto Mirror. It's free, it's pretty cool. Because what it does with a single click, Auto Mirror X, I've cut and mirror on, orient positive. When I click this, it cuts this thing in half and then adds the mirror modifier. So you don't really see a change other than that your editable vertices got slashed in half. Well, yeah. So 3 face mode. I'm going to select this loop with alt click, click on this edge. And then I'm going to shift select. So adding to this selection, this, and this. All right. Going to extrude it. And so alt E to bring up the extrude menu and say extrude faces along normals. And I'm holding down shift so it only moves a little bit. Because I have a tendency to always make that too much. And therefore I'm going to keep it a little bit lower. Then 2 to go into edge mode, and I select this one and then shift the other 3. And by keeping the mouse somewhat here, when I hit GG, I'm going to edge slide. Whoa. But first I'm going to hit O to turn off proportional editing, so GG to edge slide. And they're usually sliding somewhat towards the mouse, so as long as they're all on one side. It's easy to do with multiple ones. So we got like this exhaust thing going on. Sometimes the mirror modifier can be a bit annoying, but yeah, and sometimes it saves you time. Like especially if I were to just try out things here or edit more details. We could actually do like this. We say we loop cut, maybe like this, and then just Control B. Of course, could have made 2 loop cuts and then scaled them whatever way you want. I'm just looking for something that's not symmetrical, so it's not exactly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because that's just boring for the human eye. And Alt E, extrude along normals again, and with Shift can extrude that inwards a little bit. I'm not adding any bevels yet, because I might change things, and then, you know, every time you add those bevels, there's a chance you make the geometry a bit more complicated. So with 2 and then alt click, I selected this edge loop. I just want to see what happens when I say GGY, so edge slide. And change it like this. No, that does not look good. Maybe like this. Should be enough. Okay, now I'm going to show you another method to add details. This one uses the array modifier. And we're just gonna like loop the object around in a circle. And this is pretty useful when you just want to do, say, like things every second phase or something, you know, or maybe 4 times. Even then, I'd say that's totally worth the time. I'm going to bevel those edges first, because once we copy the geometry, it will take work to, like, say, once we copy it, but then we change the original, then of course we'd always have to do something to change the copy. So select those 2 edges, edge loops, Control B, and just bevel it, something like that. We can select the new edge loop, 2, alt click, and say GG, move it inward a bit. 3, face mode, I select those faces and those around. Yes, so now with Shift D, I duplicate the selection and click. And the cool thing is when you do that and click, the selection is now actually the new faces. So if I say G, no, it's those ones. So Blender is nice enough to know that you probably want to use the new ones. And don't use auto merge, because if you do that, then it just merged it back into the geometry, because obviously the vertices are in the same place. Now just hit P and choose separate by selection. So now it's its own object, and we're still in the edit mode of the original one. So with tab, we go to object mode and we select this one, but we can already add the array modifier here. And let's see, modifier. Oh, we have the mirror. We don't need that, so we can just delete it. Don't apply it actually. And modifier, array, and we don't need relative offset, we need object offset. And now we just need an object that we can use, and when we rotate the object, that rotation is going to get passed on to this array modifier, and it's going to, you know, offset this by a rotation. It sounds maybe natural to use this one, but we might change the scale of this, or we might rotate this or whatever, and then every time that happens, we're going to pass that information to the modifier. So we're just going to make an object that's only going to be for the modifier. So Shift A, just choose empty plain axis, so there's nothing that might accidentally get rendered. And now we choose this one, and for the object, choose the empty, the one we just created. This one here. Okay, and I think I want it 8 times, so count is 8. And now if I start rotating this on the y-axis, the object gets offset. Okay, 360 divided by 8, so that's rotation. So let's select this one and go into edit mode with tab. And right now there are a lot of faces overlapping, because what I really want is half of the one that overlaps on the top. So I'm going to loop cut here and here. Just make sure to not move the mouse, therefore it's exactly in the middle. And then 3 for face mode, and I'm going to alt click this edge and shift alt click this edge, and then X delete faces. Okay, and now it shouldn't be overlapping anymore. The weird shading, that's just overlapping with the original one, but the duplicate one is no longer overlapping due to the array modifier. Okay, let's do some loop cuts here just to define the form here. And then there will be this metal ring they're connected to. And I kind of want the ring across two faces with different rotations. I just think it looks nicer. And then it will be somewhat anchored here. So I have those, and then with 3 I'm going to select this, this, I think this entire row, just for now. No, actually not those two. And here the wings, so let's say this one should be enough for now. So let's see, Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and just move it out. And let's see. Okay. I mean, I want to do something that's, you know, visible. And once again, I said the style is going to be more of like blocky, blocky details, nothing too small or tiny. So to edge mode, going to select this edge, Control B, bevel this one like this, just so it looks a little bit smoother and aerodynamic. I think I'm also going to bevel this one, but first I want to find a way to connect this. So let's see, or not connect this, but make details. I could bevel it. That might be enough actually. And then 2, maybe I slide this edge down, so GG, and move it down. Here we could maybe do an inset. So select those, I inset, and again Alt E. Like this, I think it's okay. And then I'm gonna bevel this, 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 and this edge. Control B, just a little bit. We could try things like 2, select edge slide, GG. Just see where that leads us. I'm gonna leave that. Okay, so now we have a different way to add details. And of course the cool thing is you could also, you just go back to the original, pull a few more faces and then see how that goes. Talking about faces, let's delete the ones we're not going to use. You could be like super careful and just use a mask for now. So you would put them in a vertex group and then add the mask modifier. Rendering behind. Let's just see X delete faces. No, I had not. X delete faces. Okay. So we have that. We have some kind of wing that gives some interest. So let's add some details for the body. Select the body, edit, and edit mode. And keep in mind, we want to connect this thing to like the arm, which is going to be like a hand with this like little joystick thing and like a protector. And I want to connect this with a pole, which might not make a lot of sense, but it's a game. And I just found it's a lot more fun if you can rotate this thing around an axis while flying. And yeah, so just gonna do that. And let's see, maybe let's loop cut this loop and place it so it's just a tiny bit outside of here. I think an easy way, maybe even a cheat way to get somewhat interesting geometry is just select a few, go like GG, move this one like such. Just maybe move only, oh sorry, I still had those selected, so Shift GG, maybe in this direction, or maybe keep it here or here. I think I want it like that. Let's just select those. You can just select the entire loop, or even select this one too. Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and then with 2, select this edge, say GG, also GG, edge slide, bring it down. Okay. And I mean, it's somewhat more interesting. We can add some details, say 3 for the face, I to inset, and then E to insert like this. Maybe that's pretty deep, maybe just a little bit less, so E. Might be just as deep, so I'm gonna leave it like that. We might also want to insert this one. Alt E. I think that actually works, yeah. And then with 2, we're going to select this edge, Shift Alt, and then Shift Alt this. Okay. Like this. Okay. And here we can do the same. We just copy the geometry, so 3 face mode, and then we're going to say Shift D. So it's duplicated, P, separate by selection, tab to go into object mode, click the new object, and tab to go into edit mode. And I think in here we just keep the mirror modifier. So it's here and here. That looks okay. Now we can do stuff like loop cut, and we don't have to loop cut through the entire thing. So let's see. Maybe not perfectly even, so we have like 3, 3, and something that is bigger. Now let's do those first. E, so extrude that, and then I'm going to extrude those. Just try some like edge slides. 3, maybe this, and here we could insert it. E. Unfortunately, we can't go below the original one, but there's no reason to. So we have something like that, and then we could bevel the edges of those ones. So Control B. So they look kind of like this thing that jetpacks all have. God, this looks horrible. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that in anyway. It's like, okay, is this a button? No, it's not a button. That's, yeah. So, oh, and we have it twice, which doesn't make it look any better. But so we have, I think, somewhat of a basic jet engine you can use. And yeah, that's obviously missing the, is it the propeller? I think it's the propeller. You know, the blades that suck in the air and give it to the non-existing engine. And then of course the exhaust, that's all going to be Unity particle system. I think we can do some like animated sprites with the particle system for like some nice flames, and then there's a second one for the smoke. control it with the script and so on. Thinking maybe there should be some details here, but you know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that before I make it even worse. Okay, so I just took a quick break to look up what this thing is actually called, and it's called a fan. Because what I've learned now, after going down a pretty deep rabbit hole reading about planes, this is a turbofan engine, and the fan is responsible for sucking in air, which gets bypassed for a good part and then gets compressed here, and that is going to create some thrust. And that is responsible for like 80% of the thrust. And then there's of course the classic turbo engine inside, and that receives the fuel which gets burned. And that provides a bit of the thrust, but it's also responsible for powering the fan so it can suck in more air. And this is very fuel efficient, so it's used for like all commercial airplanes these days, pretty much. And that also means that people are very familiar with seeing this fan in front of an engine, because I think most people see a lot more commercial airplanes than they would see a military fighter plane, which might not have that, because for like really high speeds this becomes inefficient. But yeah, we're not gonna fly that fast with our jetpack, so we're gonna do a fan. Before we're gonna do that, let's do some quick cleanup. We still have some overlapping faces, so I'm gonna select the top wing here, tab to go into edit mode, select this one and this one, hit X and select delete faces. Oh, I think I'm not showing my keys. Nope, sorry. Okay, so tab out of it. And here I want to delete the original, so I'm going to select the body, hit tab, still in face mode, select this one, X, and delete faces. Okay, so speaking of cleanup, we can rename those. Let's see, this is the body. Let's just call it top wing. Let's call it like side things. And this is the top wing axis. Okay. Now I want to do a shaft for the fan, even though you're probably not gonna see that, but we can just extend it and do this little thing that sits in the middle. So let's get the cursor right here, and for that we're going to select the body, go into edit mode, into edge mode, select this edge, and say Shift S, cursor to selected. Okay, now we go out of that, back in object mode, Shift A, mesh, cylinder, and we can go with something pretty low. I think 8 is enough, and then say RX 90. I'm also going to move it forward by 1, so GY, so no, -1, GY -1, so it's here. And now when I scale, let's see, I'm going to keep it at the 3D cursor, so you see it's going to scale like this, and it's always going to sit on this face. Not that it matters too much, of course, because no one's really going to look inside, but maybe depending on your design of the fan. So we can just go into edit mode, 3 face mode, select the top one, and just move it GY. You can also go into the side view with 3, and that's way too far. GY, something like here. And of course we can easily adjust that. And I'm gonna extrude E and just click OK. So now we have 2 overlapping faces. Now I want to scale, but this time I want the selected face to be the origin, so I'm gonna say individual origins, and now I scale like this, extrude. Let's try it this way, just extrude. So we have the overall size, that's pretty big. Then Control R to loop cut and just make like a few loop cuts. And then with O, we have proportional editing turned on. I select the top face and scale it down. Let's see. You can also do multiple steps or something, but I think for now that looks okay. For the fan, we're just gonna do the same what we did with the top wing here. We're gonna make one, then use an array modifier and use an empty axis as the object, and then we just rotate it. And it's quite important that the axis and the blade have the same pivot point here. So, okay, first tab to go into object mode and then say Shift A, empty plane axis. And let's call this one blade axis. Then we're going to say Shift A, mesh plane. Say RX 90 and scale it down a bit. And of course it's also important that it's going to be at 1 here, everything when we use the modifier. So Control A, apply, rotation and scale. We call the plane the blade, and then we're gonna make it a child of the axis by, I can do it here, I select blade and then shift select, select it here and then shift drop like this. Okay, so now when we move the axis on GY, plane moves with it and they still have the same pivot, and okay, all good. Select the blade or the plane, tab into edit mode, 1 to go into front view, 1 on the numpad, and 1 here on the top to go into vertex mode. I'm just gonna say GX, select all as Z, and I'm gonna try to keep it perfectly symmetrical and based on the axis. It just makes it a lot easier when you want to adjust things or rotate on the X and stuff like that. So SZ, like this. Actually, I'm gonna make it a lot smaller. SZ. And of course, the nice thing with the array modifier, it's really easy to adjust. And I'm also going to extrude this. So 3 face mode, E to extrude. I'm holding down Shift. I want it really thin, just to give it a bit of thickness. Now, of course, you could, for performance reasons, just leave it as a single plane. Okay, let's add the modifier to the blade. So in object mode, add modifier array, and we don't want relative offset, we want object offset. And here's an interesting thing that happens if we choose the parent object. Now, that rotation doesn't really have any influence on the modifier anymore, but it's the blade's own rotation that's working now. So let's say count 16, and then in here we're gonna say 360 divided by 16. And of course we still need the empty axis to just move it along, and it can be itself, right? Even though we're doing the rotation in itself, like when we say blade add modifier, we can't choose the blade. So we need some kind of parent object. And so it's just an empty one. And if you want to rotate the blade, you have to do it in edit mode. So you go tap into edit mode. If you don't see this, the array effect, then you might have to click this one. It's not on by default. And I'm gonna hit A to select every vertex, and then hit R, X, X. So I'm hitting X twice, so it's the local X axis, and that's this one. And now I can just rotate it, and maybe like this. As I said before, I don't want it to be too easy to look through, because there isn't really anything behind it that the player should see. And now I think this thing looks a little bit too big, so tab object mode, select tab and 3 face mode, select this one, Control plus a few times to extend the selection, let's see, we can hit slash to go into isolation mode. I want one more like this. Slash to go out of isolation mode. And I'm just gonna scale this one a little bit. And I think I'm gonna hit O, turn on proportional editing, select this one, and yeah, just see what happens. Whoa, I moved it accidentally. So G, Y, use the mouse wheel to move that inward. Maybe even make it a bit thinner again, so hit that a few times. Oh, now it's scaling the shaft. Let's turn off proportional editing, and once again S something like that. I think I've reached a point where it's gonna look weird to me no matter what I do, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. And of course, just make your own design. I think they're actually a bit pointier in real life. But now we have the fan that we can then, of course, rotate in Unity. Okay, let's move on and do the arm. I'm not gonna attempt to model a hand by myself. I think that's probably a lot harder than it sounds. So I'm just gonna import a free model. I'm gonna show the link in the description. You may even have used it. It's like the #1 free hand asset. So if you ever Google like free hand FBX, this is probably what comes up first. And then with the model downloaded, I just go into import FBX, and it's here rigged hand, and import that. And so it comes with a low poly and a high poly version. I think this one is the high poly, yeah. So I'm just gonna delete this mesh because I want to use the low poly and I don't want to get confused. I could also delete the bounce here, it doesn't really matter right now. So I actually want to use an animation here, and I'm not gonna do the implementation in Unity for now, like the animations. If there is interest, just let me know in the comments, and then I can do a video on that after I do the virtual reality implementation. It just takes quite a bit of time, so I don't want to just drag on here for people who aren't interested in that. So we're just going to grab a keyframe from the animation that already came with the FBX. For that, we're going to go here into the dope sheet. Going to make it a bit bigger. And if you select the armature, and in the second menu under dope sheet we choose the action editor, and then here in the middle, the third menu so to speak, there are some actions, and if you choose the hand roll, here we can drag the timeline, and so you can see, and we can just use one of those, and want to make it so that we can just use this animation. And there's just one tiny problem, which is we obviously want to scale the hand up and rotate and so on, but the armature has keyframes for location, rotation and scale. So we would end up scaling it, putting the hand in the right position, and then as soon as we move the timeline, it's just gonna jump back to like this size here at this position. So what we can do is with the armature selected in the roll, we're gonna choose, let's see, armature. And right here we have location and rotation and the scale. Just shift select those and then hit delete. And now those things are gone. And so now if we move, let's see, if we move the armature and then move the timeline, the hand is still rolling, but the armature doesn't move. Okay, let's just close that and start moving this in the right position. And so it's important to move the armature because, yeah, I mean, not too hard to see that you should move the hand. It's bound to the armature, so First of all, we want the origin somewhere here, so object, set origin, origin to geometry, because that makes scaling with S much easier. Then move it on the GX. Also, I want to place the hand here inside, so the turbine is outside. Obviously, you're not like putting the thrust in your stomach. And so this is the wrong hand, so to speak. But we can just scale only like SX minus 1. And so now we flipped it. And actually got to move it like this. So let's see. Z minus 90. And then just on the Y. So RY 9, wrong direction. RY minus 90. Okay. So that's the way I want the hand to be positioned. So GY. Obviously make this bigger. GY. Let's see, side view, GZ, GY, bigger. No, actually that's too much. I don't want that too big, because then obviously the turbine doesn't look as powerful. Something like that. You can try that. Okay, so now I'm gonna choose the model, and yeah, I think it's called Cube 5. We can call that hand. So I'm going to remove the material. But for now, let's see, edit 2. We can select this edge loop and just say G, Y, and then scale. Maybe not as big, something like this. Can extrude. Also E, Y. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Let's see, for the position, what we can do now is we just move the timelines. So, and then when we export, we just choose that frame. So this kind of looks like it's holding a joystick thing in his hand. I'm probably not going to use the armature anymore. So for now, I'm just gonna select it and then H to hide it. And what I want to do now is make the arm protector. So I want to make a wing that fits nicely around this arm. So for that, I'm gonna click the hand, tab to go into edit mode, to edge mode, and alt click this edge loop. Now I can say Shift S, cursor to selected, and the cursor is right here in the middle. I'm gonna tab out into object mode and then Shift A, mesh, circle. And I think 16 sides should be fine. Then we're gonna rotate this thing. So RX minus 90. And use minus 90. I think that's gonna lead to the correct face orientation. We'll see. 3 into side view, 3 on the numpad. Then I'm just gonna scale a bit down. I think it doesn't have to be too tight here, but just something. You can also see it fits nicely in the middle. Okay. I think I'm gonna apply the rotation and scale. So Control A, apply rotation and scale, because we're gonna add a mirror modifier very soon. But first, let's tap into edit mode, one vertex mode. I'm gonna select those 3 and hit Control X to dissolve. So we get this new edge here. And yeah, I think now we can add the mirror modifier already. So with the auto mirror tool, we're gonna mirror on the Z axis. We want to keep the positive, so the top half, and then just click it, and yeah. And then just tap back into edit mode. We can go to like edge mode 2, A to select all. And then I'm going to extrude on the Y axis. I think I want one perfectly normal wing, so to speak, and then EY. This one we can just scale up, like, whoa, like this. It's okay if it cuts into the flesh a little bit, because we're just gonna extrude this multiple times. And of course the arm there was just me taking a wild guess at more or less what the what's it called, where the real arm would be. So EY one more time. Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep this straight too. Maybe a little bit smaller, GY, and then EY one more time. And the last one I'm going to scale down a bit. Yeah, I think that looks okay for now. So let's select all faces, so 3 face mode, A to select all, and then Alt E, extrude along normals. Just want all of them out a little bit. I mean, should never give the impression of being paper thin. Should be like big, strong metal, whatever. And then 3, I'm gonna hit Alt click this edge loop, Shift Alt click this edge loop, and then I'm gonna Shift select this, let's see, and this. Trying to think if that's enough, but I think so. Yeah, let's try this. So Alt E, extrude along normals, make it come out a bit. Okay, we can also loop cut this, maybe move the loop cut a bit so it's not too symmetrical. For some reason the mirror modifier got lost, so I'm just going to click that again. Oh, on a side note, I'm not going to do any beveling now, because say if I were to select this edge loop and then I say Control B bevel, what you can see is the new geometry ruins the loop cuts for me. So if I loop cut here, it's not going to go through anymore, but here it goes through nicely through the entire thing, and here it doesn't, because you know this is not a quad anymore. So just want to show you, don't bevel anything now. We can do that in the end when we're more or less happy with the final result. So okay, let's see. I think to be safe, I'm actually gonna copy the geometry here. But you know what? Let me move some edges, because that can lead to nice forms. So I'm gonna select those two, GG for edge slide. Yeah, I'm gonna copy the geometry just like we did before, because it just makes things easier. So say Shift D, click P, separate, tab, click, tab, and here we are. Copy geometry. So I want a loop cut, and I want the loop cut to be exactly like this, so multiple ones. And the way I can do that is if I Control R and just click anywhere. Now if I hit E, it switches to even, and well, it shows this edge. If I hit F, it chooses the other edge. Now all I have to do is move this, let's say, really close, like this, and now I can make multiple loop cuts. So I'm just gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's enough. Yeah. So now I'm gonna bevel those. Control B, holding down Shift just a little bit, and I can go into face mode with 3, and then with Control and I invert the selection. Holding down Shift, I deselect those, and now I have that. And now when I hit Alt E, so as I mentioned, pretty much everything is gonna create really ugly as polygons. Meaning if I do this along normals, I'm just gonna go extreme. So the problem is, of course, like this quad is never like planar. It's actually really twisted. Because if you say like Alt E, extrude individual faces, like now they're perfect. So you could do all the extra work and just make like a new face, like oh sorry, this, shift this, F, this, shift this, F. I think in this case I'd actually use an array modifier. Just do one and then just multiply it. But we can do a little bit and it's not too bad. And I noticed that extrude manifold actually looks the best. It's still twisted somewhat. But once again, you can have like those twisted endons. It's not going to be a problem in Unity. I'm gonna tap back into the original one. Actually, let's do some loop cuts here. Then I'm gonna shift and then control click this one, GG. I can slide this entire thing. I think I want this to be more pointy, which means I need to move those back. So GG. Alt E, extrude along normals, shift to fine tune it. We're gonna bevel this thing too. And you can even do like super crazy things like I insert the face, I to insert individual ones, and then we're gonna extrude along normals. Crazy, right? So once again, I need to find something better than this, but now before we do some like beveling, I want to copy more geometry so it doesn't get destroyed, so to speak, by the beveling. So I'm gonna go into face mode 3, this, control click this, shift and shift control, and now I have this. So shift D, click P, separate by selection, and it's its own object. Let's stay with the original one. So to edge mode. First of all, we can alt click this edge loop and then maybe scale this down a bit and GY, move this in a bit. Okay. Now I'm gonna select all the edges I want to bevel. So alt click this edge loop, shift alt this one, this edge loop, this edge loop, this, and I think the ones here too. Just shift click those. Okay, I think that's all I want. So control B and holding down shift, so fine tune it. I can't go too far, of course, like right here it would just create weird geometry. Here we have a bit more space, but I think that's good for now. And so as you can see, it destroyed the quads here, which is why I copied this first. So when we tap out and tap into the copied one, tap this, there's still like nice quads, much easier to work with. So 3, face mode, A, select all. I'm gonna move them just a little bit on the X, G, Y, a little bit, oh sorry, on the Z. No, I'm moving them on the Y, but I don't want to, G, Z. So like this. You could also, of course, just type in the exact values. And 3, select all, Alt E, extrude along normals, just a bit. I'm gonna select those ones, and once again extrude along normals. Now I want to scale them. Let's see, I'm gonna scale a little bit, like all of it, so we have this little corner here on the side. I think that's fine. But I also want to make them go thinner, and that I can do by going into the transform orientation, choose normal, and then I'm gonna say as X, and that's like the X for the face. So it's kind of like this. They're still like averaged out, they're all a bit differently rotated, and so it's not gonna look super clean, but you know what? Maybe it's not an expensive jetpack, it's a used one. So I think it's okay if it looks like that. I think for now this is all I want to do with the shield. You can add details later, but I think it makes more sense to do the connector first. And so we know we have those two faces here. They are, yeah, shit, they're not exactly on the y-axis. Let's see what happens when I say SX. Oh, sorry, I'm still in normal. I'm gonna go in global. I'm going to SX 0, just to see how bad it is, because I think we can live with that, because it just makes things a bit easier if those are perfectly aligned, which they are now, by scaling SX on the 0. And we already know this one is also perfectly aligned, so it's going to be much easier to make the connector. And once again, as you may have guessed, we're gonna copy some geometry. The only question is how much. Let's just copy more and then we can delete it. So something like this. I'm gonna say Shift D, P, separate by selection, tab, 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 and here we are. Now the idea is to just make a wing, make like a pole, and then connect this thing. So I want the wing to be exactly in the middle of this, so I'm gonna select one vertex mode, select this vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected. So now when we say Shift A, circle, it's gonna be right here. 8 sides should be enough, and I'm gonna rotate on the y-axis. Oh, one important thing, turn off clipping and merge for the mirror modifier, just for doing this wing here. So RY90, and then scale it down a bit. Oh, once again, I want to rotate it by half a rotation. So I'm going to say RX, and then 360 divided by 16 is 22.5. So I just entered that on the numpad. And now it's rotated this way. It's going to be a bit easier with the mirror modifier. And we can, let's see, scale it a little bit up, a little bit more, and then E to extrude. No, actually let's make a face first, F, and then E, maybe like this. And we can just turn clipping on, but the geometry is here. And the cool thing is with this tool, we just click it again, auto mirror, and now it did the bool operation. And just remove one of the mirror modifiers. Okay, 3 face mode. Let's see. I'm gonna insert this eye. Again, if you get this, you have to hit B for the boundary, and then E to extrude it inwards, pretty much as close to the original surface. And 3, I'm gonna select this, this, and this. For the time being, I'm gonna go into isolation mode with slash to not have things in the way, and then Alt E, extrude along normals, like this, and then 2 edge mode. I'm gonna select this, this, and this, and with GG, I'm going to slide them all in. Okay, 3 into face mode. Gonna insert. And I'm gonna make it quite small because I'm gonna add some details to the pole. I want it to look like the pole can actually rotate. So if that make the pole just fit inside this octagon, well, it wouldn't be physically able to rotate. So I'm gonna E to extrude this. I don't think I want it very long. GX. Okay, nah. It's too little. Let's adjust later. So 3 face this one, and this one. Once again, Alt E, extrude along normals. I'm even gonna bevel those edges, I think. So this, this, and this. Control B. Bevel this in a bit. And let's see everything together. So get this little pole thing. I think I want it a little bit longer, so I'm gonna say those 4 faces and just say GX. Right. Since I already have them selected, no, actually I'm thinking, let me see. I want to make the connector, so I think I'm going to just extrude this a little bit. And 3, alt click this edge loop, extrude this a little bit. Something like that. And then maybe I can select this edge loop, 2 and alt click. And then I can just say GX, or edge slide, I mean, same thing here. So they look like attached a little bit. I'm gonna do the joystick first. I'm gonna make a circle, so Shift A, mesh circle. 8 sides should be enough. 7 on the numpad for the top view, and with G I'm gonna move this in, scale, move this in like this. Let's see. It's right in the middle, so I'm gonna move this out a little bit. Once again, top G. Maybe a little bit smaller. Doesn't matter if it overlaps a little bit, but yeah. Let's see here. Maybe even to this side. Okay. Tab for edit mode, F to fill it with a face, E to extrude it. Let's do a little bit downward. And we can extrude here, then extrude again and say like GX. That's the wrong one. So where are we? Okay, GY. More like this. I'm gonna extrude one more time, E, like that. And I want to connect this thing, of course, to this thing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tab. I want to take some of that geometry. Edit mode for this one. The problem is that geometry doesn't really exist. That's just the modifier. But if we go ahead here and select 3, face mode, I'm gonna select this, probably way more than I need, but just so I have it. Shift D, click, P, separate, tab, go into this one. I'm gonna apply the mirror modifier for this one that I just created. Tap into it, and with the mouse over this geometry, I hit L, so it selects all connected vertices, and then I'm gonna delete them. Okay, now what I have is those vertices. That's what I wanted. So I'm just gonna extrude that. I'm gonna set SZ0. So they are exactly, I forgot the word. Okay. And okay, let's join those. Actually, I'm gonna hit this, shift select this, and say Control J. Now they are one object. Then I can take maybe this and say E. Yeah, and they need to move to the side, so GX. Let's look at it from the bottom, so Control 7 on the numpad, and then GX. Getting somewhat twisted. You know what, I think it doesn't matter too much. What I can do now is it low enough? No, so GZ. I'm gonna select this edge loop, which didn't work, and then say Shift Alt, just keep clicking until I have it. So I want that loop, and Shift Alt this edge loop. Let's see, nope, come on. Okay, and now I'm gonna use the free add-on, which is called Loop Tools, just go into here like edit, preferences, add on, and look for loop tools, because then you can right click loop tools and bridge. And now you have this slightly better connection. Okay. And to not make it this boring, we can do like maybe this, Control B, Alt E, extrude along normals, move it inward a bit. Okay. Continuing with the joystick. E to extrude. Let's see, I'm gonna GZ, so it's just above the index finger. And then I'm going to extrude one more time. Let's see. Should be enough. And I'm gonna select those 4 sides. Once again, Alt E, extrude along normals. So it's something like that. Could bevel the edge. You know what? I am going to bevel the edge. Let's see, here and here. I'm not going to do mirror modifier because obviously this thing isn't symmetrical anymore, but it's just a few details we can just add here and there. Then I select those 4 faces, I to insert, and I again, so it's individual faces like this, Alt E, just a little bit, and then Control B, bevel it, so it looks a bit like buttons. And now this looks a bit too boring, so maybe just, I don't know, insert, extrude inward. Let's see, insert, E, can bevel this, maybe move this edge down, so Alt click this edge, GZ or edge slide, maybe like this, and so this is the button that does something. Not for now, but you know. Oh yeah, on a side note, I'm gonna make the actual jetpack control to be like, I think it's the Z button on the Quest 2 controller. So you're not really gonna see like why aren't my hands moving. And maybe just a bit more details here. Let's see if we bevel this. That's too much. Let's go for 2. Should be enough. Control B, bevel. Yeah, and then I'm gonna select this edge loop, Shift Alt, and then with Alt E, I'm going to extrude just a little bit. We could try what happens when we scale on like the Z only, maybe like this. Okay, could be. And insert those, Alt E, like that. Okay, so we got this kind of like control thing, we got this thing. Okay, let's do some cleanup. First of all, I can see that there are too many faces here, so tab into this. Yeah, it's when we copied the geometry. I'm going to delete the copied one, so this one. Tab here, 3, face mode, and oh, the in-between ones are there too. So control, click this, shift click this, shift control this, and I say X delete faces. Okay, there we go. I think that's it for overlapping. No. Just when I said it, because this one is overlapping too. So select it. Yeah, I'm not gonna do anything with those faces. I was just thinking for a second, but you know what? Let's get rid of that. Okay. X delete faces. Okay.
Power off.
And now we should do some naming and everything. So the circle That's the control stick. And that's the... oh shit. This is the connector, but this, the pole should actually be part of the jetpack, right? Because we're gonna rotate the jetpack with it. Let's do that in a moment. So, you know what? I'm gonna keep it separated just in case I want to do adjustments. Maybe you can upgrade the jetpack, whatever. So the pole is then separated, but we need to separate the stick from this, so to speak. So I think we can try, if we select this, let's see, Control plus, that seems to have worked perfectly. Okay. And now I'm going to say P, separate by selection. Hello, this is Checkman from a future point in time. So there's one important thing that I forgot to do here, and that is to set the pivot of the pole just like in the middle of it. Because right now that little pole has its pivot in the middle of the wrist. And it's just gonna make things a little bit more messy in Unity, because we want to rotate this pole around its own axis. So you can just like select the pole and then say object, set geometry, set origin to geometry. Just make sure it's somewhere in the middle so we can rotate it. Now this is the again overlapping geometry. So select all of that. X, delete faces. Oh, this one too. Sneaky bastard. And okay. So this is the protector stick holder. That's not an engineering name, but it's definitely a name that I know exactly. Oh, it's the protector stick holder. And I shouldn't call it. I'm gonna call this the pole from now on, because this is the pole that it moves on. So if I select this, F2, this is the pole. This is the pole holder. This is the body. We already knew that. Let's apply the damn modifier. Okay, so array, and let's say apply. Control P and keep transform. Okay, so, and that's not a cylinder, that's the you can just call it the fan, because we're not gonna care in Unity that this is two different objects. The wing, the fan, and the details. Control P. Whoa. And then lastly I need to select the body, sorry. And then Control P. We're just gonna parent this. Let's see what happens when we move the body. G. Oh, we still have that modifier on. So once again, just say apply. And then we can move this freely. You can keep the modifiers intact, by the way, like if you, I think, parent the axis. But we're pretty much done here. So let's see. We need to bring this a little bit back, I think. G, well, not the X, GY. So it's here. But also not the same height. And okay, let's do the parenting here so we can move that too. So I think it makes sense if really the hand, that's the thing that everything is connected to. So let's see, I don't even have the hand here, it's here. But at least I call it hand. Okay, so I have this stick. Let's see. Let's just call this protector deco, so decoration. This is the actual protector. This one is the protector shield. And I think we got everything now. Also, maybe we should close this one. Let's see. gonna select some loop inside here. Can I? No, I can't. Okay, tab. No, I shouldn't hide the arm. Let's see. I'm gonna tap into the arm anyway. Then I select this one. I say G, Y. Just move this in a bit. Tap R, tap into this. See if I get some edge loop. Maybe this one. Alt. Yeah. Let's say F, face. Okay. Moving on, I think we got everything, nothing's just a cube or so. So let's do the parenting of everything to this arm. So the stick, the deco, the protector, the shield, and the pole holder. And then lastly, I select the arm and I say Control P, set parent to object. Okay. And as I can see now, the the pivot is here. That sucks. Set object, set origin to geometry. Okay. So I'm gonna go into front view and then say GZ, and the pole does not move with it. I'll just select this too, GZ. Okay, and then I just bring this one GX. Let's see. GX, move. Just a tiny bit too big. Yeah, I can live with that. Okay. I think I want this more in the front, so GY, not as much as we can get away with here. I think, yeah. Okay, this is the modeling part. It's done now. Gonna do a bit of texturing. I'm just gonna choose like really simple colors. Okay, now for the texturing, we're going to use a technique that is quite common for low poly or mobile games because it's quite performant, and that is we're going to use one material that's going to use one texture, and it's a really tiny texture, just has a bunch of like pixels on it, and then we're going to scale the faces down to whatever pixel we want, and so we have that color. And so we can make a nice color palette, and we can also adjust it easily. Say we want everything to be a bit darker or this and that color to be a bit lighter, then all we have to do is adjust the texture, and then everything that's using it is going to update. Okay, so I'm gonna use Krita, which is a free open source painting program. Okay, so here in Krita I'm just going to make a new file, and it used to work with like really tiny textures, so you only needed one pixel. Right now for some reason it doesn't work, so you know what, I just go ahead and use 80 times 20, and then I'm gonna use like 10 times 10. That is definitely not going to make any influence on the size of your game, and probably not on performance either. Okay, so most painting tools, even like MS Paint, they have like a paintbrush and a pencil, and what you usually want here is the pencil. In Krita you can find it under pixel art, and then choose this one. And now if I choose size 10, and since I'm not that good with like color theory and harmony, I'm just gonna use an image. I just googled like Jet Engine and then like Pixabay, so their images are free to use, and I'm just gonna color pick some of those colors, and then for every one of those I'm gonna make a stamp, and then that gives us something like this, and then I'm just gonna export it as a PNG, and then we're gonna go back to Blender. Okay, so first of all let's go into the shading mode, and we're just going to make one material, and then every object is going to use that. So choose any object, click new to make a new material, and this material is going to get its color from the texture we just created. So in here say Shift A, texture, image texture. Just place it here and then click open and open the file you just exported from Krita or Photoshop or whatever you use. So I named mine Jetpack colors, and then I'm gonna connect the color with the base color. Okay, so let's go into UV editing, and in here we want to open the image. So let's see, I got Jetpack colors here. If you don't find it here, just open it again. And now I'm with this object selected in edit mode, then 3 for face mode. I can select some faces. I can select all and say unwrap. You unwrap gives me this, and then I can select those faces here. And now if I start scaling it down, and you can actually see the texture, right? So if you had like a normal image, do something like that, but we don't need any of that. We can just, for example, make it all black. There's a bit of shininess to it, which is not normal for low poly games. But yeah, it doesn't matter. We can just do that in Unity here. Yeah, no, we do that in Unity. Okay, so now I'm just going to choose a few things. Actually, maybe not this one black. So let's see, 3. I think I want this wing, but I'm gonna select this one. Alt click this, and with Control plus extend the selection. It's going to go a bit. I'm gonna go into isolation mode with slash. Sorry, I think the keys, yep, not showing. Shift to deselect this one and this tiny face. Maybe even this edge loop too. Shift Alt. So, and then I say, and with those selected, I can basically, I'm gonna go over this now, right? And then you can see them. So, since they're so freaking small, they're hard to see. But once you have them selected here and not here, like this, you just go over with the mouse. Or you can also just hit A. And you only select those, as you can see now. So, I'm just gonna make this something, I don't know, some other color. Looks really strange. No, actually it should be the other way around. Okay, so anyhow, that's the process, and I'm just gonna try a few colors and probably speed this up. Just select the ones you want, select them here, and then just move them on the color you want them to be. Okay, so I went with this one, and also I decided, you know what, I'm gonna do less specular here already, going for more of the like typical low poly look, just to get a better preview. But back in the editing, I just want to show you a quick tip. So what I often do is then I select some, and like then I select only those and move those, and I try to keep that in islands. So when I go into like 3, face, A, select all, you can see when I go over with my mouse, I have like this little island. So like now I see, okay, this little dot, that's the other ones in the middle. So I can switch that. And of course this is the body. So it's then a bit easier to just like, you know, drag colors around and try things out. As long as all of those are selected, and then I just go over the mouse, or of course hit A, I see all my little groups, and then can box select them. Oh, and one last thing before I forget, I think we have some bad faces here. So if we go in here and then choose face orientation, yep, that's not good. So that means they're pointing inward and they wouldn't be rendered, but we can easily fix that. So select this one, tab into edit mode, 3, face mode, A, all faces, and then Shift N is going to recalculate it. Now they're blue, and yeah, oh, another one. That can happen when you like start with those like base meshes, like a wing or something, and then you extrude in the wrong direction, but yeah, not a problem. 3A, Shift N, tab, and let's do the wing. 3A, Shift N, tab, done. And we can turn this off. Okay, so let's do like maybe this thing. That's the wing. Let's do that. I'm just gonna make it black anyway. So when I go here into material, it doesn't have one. You can either make a new one, but of course the idea was we just used the same one. And maybe we shouldn't call it material, but let's say maybe it's called something like machine colors. So you will know like, oh, this is the one I'm using for the machines. Well, technically the hand is in there too, but whatever. So machine colors, and now we can just go once again, we tap into edit mode, face mode, A, select all, and then U, unwrap. Okay. And then just scale it down. And we're not seeing anything, oh, because I switched the viewport. So yeah, that's more like it. Okay, so I finished all the texturing, and by the way, this is what happened before I unwrapped this thing and I just applied the material. And I think, you know what, I'm just gonna leave it in there because that's pretty cool. And I want to see this like rotate in Unity. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Now we're going to export this. And we're not going to export the rig, so we can export this pretty easily. So just make sure that the negative Y is forward, because that's going to be the Z axis forward in Unity. And this is, for example, if you use like transform.forward, then it's going to use that. And so otherwise it just gets confusing, and it's way easier to just like stick to the standard. So yeah, we're gonna export all of this, and let's see. Okay, so we did the cleanup. I think I'm just gonna select all by hand. And I can also go in layout mode. So everything is still selected. And I'm just gonna say File, Export, FBX. And here, when we export, make sure to limit to selected objects. And I mean, obviously we don't have a camera, just mesh. That's the idea. And we can leave that, apply unit. And we're gonna say apply transform, because otherwise you're gonna have to do some like rotation, apply, rotate again, like weird shit. And yeah. Okay, thanks for watching. Wow, if you made it to this point, wow, thanks a lot for sticking around. If you have any questions, feedback, criticism, just leave a comment below. Please do me a favor and like this video and subscribe to this channel. And in the next video, we are going to go into Unity and we're gonna add the fire and smoke. And then after that, we're of course gonna do the controls so we can actually fly around in this thing. Okay, see you then. Goodbye.